السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hajj, chapter 22, verse 5, after أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم من مضغة مخلقة وغير مخلقة لنبين لكم ونقر في الأرحام ما نشاء إلى أجل مسمى ثم نخرجكم طفلا ثم لتبلغوا أشدكم ومنكم من يتوفى ومنكم من يرد إلى أرذل العمر لكي لا يعلم من بعد علم شيئا. O people, and over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say يا أيها المؤمنون or all who believe or Muslimun. He goes to people, to everyone. O people, if you have a doubt about the resurrection, consider that we have created you out of dust, that Allah created you out of dust, then out of sperm, then out of a leech-like clot, then out of a morsel of flesh, partly formed and partly unformed, in order that Allah may manifest His power to you, and we cause whom we will to rest in the wombs for an appointed term. Then do we bring you out as babies, then foster you that you may reach your age of full strength. And some of you are called to die, and some are sent back to the feeblest old age, very weak, so that they know nothing after have known much. And this is, at old age, you hear a lot of people at old age, they start having dementia or Alzheimer's because they forget that I mean, we know that from Quran. We know that from one of the dua of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, that he always used to make dua that Allah does not make him reach to that level, that he forgets things. So we are continuing talking about the stages of life, and last time I've talked about the stage when we were in a spiritual world, or ruh, the world of ruh, before we went inside our mom's womb, and then we discussed that stage, and we made a reference that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that when we were only spirits, we took a covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But of course, we don't remember when we were in the spiritual world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hold us accountable to it either. And we mentioned that after 120 days of pregnancy, Allah will send Jibreel alayhi salam and blow this Allah's spirit inside of the baby. So that's when we become technically alive, when we have ruh inside of us and becomes a soul. When the ruh inside the body, that's when it becomes a soul. But we said both of them are used interchangeably. And we mentioned the story of Adam and Eve alayhim salam with the belief that he's our enemy. And we made sure we understand that the excuse of saying, oh, this is our fate when we make mistakes, that doesn't work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Nazi'at toward the end of it, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Whoever is transgressing, whoever prefers only the life of this dunya, of this life, the achievement of this life, whether it's the achievements, is the pleasures or the career, whatever it is, only this life, doesn't think about the hereafter, Allah guarantees that, walayadu billah, that Jahannam, the hellfire, will be his final abode for that person who does not think about the day of judgment. وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى. But those who have fear to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their lives and prevent his soul from transgressing, especially عن الهوى, meaning being indulged in the desires. You can live your life, but do not indulge in desires. Then Allah promises heaven to be your final home, inshallah, for all of us. So for whoever goes and says, that's my fate and these things, they don't have a good understanding of it, and we did talk about it many times before. Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam one time was sitting among the companions, and he had a piece of wooden stick in his hand with which he was scratching the ground. And he raised his head and said, there is none of you but has his place assigned either in the fire or in paradise. So the companions inquired, O Allah's Messenger, why should we carry on doing good deeds? Shall we depend upon the qadr and give up work? If everyone is guaranteed his place, whether walayadu billah in the hellfire or heaven, why should we be doing the right things? That's the question that the companion asked. So if you ask him this question, that's a legitimate question too. And if kids ask these questions, that's a very legitimate question. So the answer is the Prophet said, no. He said, you're supposed to carry on doing good deeds, for everyone will find it easy to do such deeds that will lead him or her towards that of which he has been created. Then he recited Surah Al-Layl, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى إِنَّ سَعْيَكُمْ لَشَتَّى. That he goes, سورة الليل فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى. Sorry. So he who gives in charity and fears. So look how Allah and the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam explained in the hadith. He's giving us the choices, and this is the stage when we are in this life. If we are given the choices and give in charity and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all sincerity and testify to the best, we will indeed make smooth for him the path to bliss. That's a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if you do that, you will be guaranteed heaven. But the other side, if he who is greedy, miser, and thinks himself self-sufficient and only indulges in his desires or her desires and gives the lie to the best, always lying, we will indeed make, and Allah will make smooth for him the path to misery. So if you choose to do good, Allah promises you heaven. If you choose to do bad, Allah promises you, walayadu billah, the hellfire. So to go and blame, to make a mistake and blame that mistake on al-qadr or on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that excuse will not be accepted. So this stage, the third stage, it starts like we mentioned when we are when we fit the pregnancy finishes 6 to 9 months and the baby is born, and the baby, as we mentioned, is until they reach the age of puberty, they are considered pure and they are not accountable for anything. Where Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam told us, كل مولود يولد على الفطرة فإما فأبواه يهودانه أو ينصرانه أو يمجسانه. Every child is born upon the fitrah, the innate nature. And the innate nature is what? We discussed it last time, is that we testified to the oneness of Allah. That's our fitrah, that's our innate nature. So it's only his parents who turn him into a Jew or a Christian or a fire worshipper or a Hindu or whatever other religions they have. But every child, every one of us, we are born because why? Like we mentioned, we all testify to the oneness of Allah. as we know, the children, the stages they go through, from the first 2 years, you can't do anything with them except play with them. They don't understand. And then after 2 years, you start teaching them Allah, to say the kalima and these things. They don't understand what it means, but you want to get them used to it. And after age of 5, you start, having them memorize the small surahs and al-Fatiha and teach them wudu and as-salah up until they reach the age of 7. And why do we do that? We do that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us in the Quran, in Surah Taha and many other surahs, وَأَمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا لَا نَسْأَلَكَ رِزْقًا نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Enjoin upon your family the prayers. You have to order them to pray. You have to order the children to teach them from young age to pray. And you have to teach them why they pray and these things. You just don't tell them, especially us here, if we're going to teach our kids the way we were taught Islam, rest assured you're going to lose your kids. Okay? And I'll have another hadith to prove to you from Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam that every generation is different. You cannot go and say, oh, well, my grandfather used to do this, so I'm going to do that. You cannot do that with your kids. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, and enjoin upon your family the prayers, and be patient with it. Be patient with the prayers and be patient teaching your kids, your family. And as we mentioned from the story of Adam alayhi salam, that you, the fathers, are responsible for that. It's not the mothers. Now, if you are not doing your job, then it becomes a responsibility on the mother. But the first responsibility is on you, the father. Okay? So the excuse of you working 12 hours, 14 hours is not a good excuse and not a valid excuse, by the way. We ask not of you a provision. Allah is telling you, we ask not of you of a provision. This is why working 14, 16 hours, if that's your excuse, Allah is telling you, we ask not of you a provision, we provide for you. And the sequel is to the righteous, for the righteous. So if your excuse, you are not teaching or you don't have time to teach your kids because you are working 12, 14, 16 hours, 7 days a week, and these things, Allah is telling you, He's telling you, لا نسألك رزقا نحن نرزقك. We are not asking you of a provision. Allah is not asking you for a provision. He will provide for you. So you need to clear your intention toward Allah, so Allah will make it easy for you. So you have to have that yaqeen, that certainty that Allah will provide for you and help you. Well, Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam told us, مروا أبناءكم بالصلاة ل7 واضربوهم عليها ل10 وفرقوا بينهم في المضاجع. Order your children to pray from 7. So we teaching them after 5, we start teaching them al-wudu, we start teaching them al-Fatiha and the small surahs. But after 7, they have to be consistent on making the salah, all 5 salats. And of course, by then they will know their alphabet, so they are able to read the Quran. So we need to train them to read at least 10 minutes a day. And of course, they are not going to read 10 minutes a day if you, the fathers, at least don't read 10 minutes a day. If they don't see you reading, they are not going to read. So you got to start with yourself first. So he's saying, Rasul teaching us, order your children to pray at 7. At 7, it becomes like, get them used to it from now, at 7. And hit them for not praying at the age of 10. Of course, when he's saying hit, we know he's a mercy for all worlds. So he's not asking you to bruise them or to abuse them. Hit them like just to let them know you are angry. You don't leave a mark on their skin, you don't hit them in the face, and you don't abuse them, right? So we need to understand, we don't need to act like the enemies of Islam. They take the words out of context. And if you have boys and girls, of course, you need to separate. You need to separate them in different rooms after they get the age of 10. Even if they are not at the age of puberty, from the Sunnah is to separate between your kids if they are boys and girls at the age of 10, based on this hadith. So we need to teach our kids Islam, not to indoctrinate them. not to do blind following. And of course, in the beginning, they're gonna follow us and how we pray and how we make wudu and all these things. But we need to make them understand that we are teaching them. We need them to understand that they need to use their intellect, their brain, in finding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to make them disciplined about coming to the masajid. Now, by the age of 10, if your kids, and we repeat that all the time, if your kids are not disciplined in making the salat and reading the Quran, in having Islamic character, rest assured you lost them. Okay? Because if you did not do that from the beginning until the age of 10, it's not going to happen after the age of 10. And those of you who's going to try to do it after the age of 14, that's the rebellious age. How are you going to teach your kids to start praying and be disciplined in praying? And by the way, if you talk to any educator, and I'm sure our sisters, we have a lot of educators there, they will attest to that. That after the age of 10, it's very hard to discipline a kid to be educated in certain manners. If you did not discipline them by the age of 10, it's going to be very hard. This is why from the Sunnah, Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam is preparing you, telling you, prepare your kids from the age of 7. After the age of 14, this is the rebellious age. This is the hard age. This is the age if the way you're gonna answer your kids is by beating them up and by kicking them and these things, you're gonna lose them too. You need to be intellectual with them so you keep them in the realm of Islam. And remember the statistics over here. 23% of Muslims in the US leave the realm of Islam. We're talking about almost 1 out of 5 kids or Muslims leave Islam. And I'm not going to give them excuses. Okay, they will be punished for it if they don't repent and come back. But we are guilty of it too, for imposing it on them, for not teaching them properly, and for not presenting it to them the right way. And for saying things and not implementing it on ourselves, like do as I say, do not do as I do, right? So that doesn't work for kids these days. So we need to be careful because we will be responsible for them in the day of judgment. Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam made sure, and this is what I meant to earlier when I said, do not teach your kids the way we were taught or the way our grandfather taught us or our parents taught us. Rasul said, literally, they have been created, that our kids, this generation, or any generation they come in, they have been created for a time which is different than their time, than your time. Okay? Their time is different than yours. Do not teach them the way we were taught. All right? But still emphasize on them the principle, especially the principles of Tawheed, monotheism. So you will have a lot of kids in this stage, even us adults would ask this question. Why are we here? Why are we in this world? And what is our purpose in this life as Muslims? These are legitimate questions. Your kids will ask these questions. Some parents, I found out, when their kids ask these questions, they go and beat them up. These are legitimate questions. Why are you beating them up? That means your kids are very smart to ask these questions. So why we are here is because Allah very clearly said in Al-Quran, in Surah Al-Zariyat, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I only have created jinn and men that they may worship me. And how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not by staying in the mosque. I said and our scholars mention that all the times. Worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any kind of work that you do in your intention for the benefit of mankind, for the benefit of your family and these things, that kind of work, that kind of study, that kind of movement becomes part of worship, aside from our regular worship, which is the prayers, the zakah, the hajj, and the fasting, and these things. And we need to understand from our scholars that they teach us, worship is the obedience of the worshipper, us, to the creator in a command or a prohibition. So worshipper worship, it doesn't mean, I just come to the masjid, I pray, or do the salah, or do the salah on Fridays and all my sins get wiped out, or do the five daily salahs and then after that everything goes. No, worship, to be a worshipper, that means I'm applying Allah's command in every command and prohibition, not only for worshiping, for every action in life. And we have to be very careful in that stage when we are here, that every movement we do at this stage, we are accountable for it, right? And our scholars teach us that this life, yes, it's irrelevant for us to make it as an end or a goal. If all what we're gonna do is for the sake of this life and forget about the hereafter, then it's irrelevant. But at the same time, they teach us, in the same token, it is important and cannot be forgotten. That this life, it is important and cannot be forgotten, because it's our right to the hereafter. And why they are saying this? Because any kind of work we do, if we turn it around to be, and this is how you discover your purpose, right? This is the second question. What is my purpose? If any kind of action, whether it's you are a scientist, whether you are in construction, any kind of action you do, you transfer it for the benefit of mankind, that action becomes, like I mentioned, is worship, and that can be your right to the hereafter. So whatever you do in this life, have the intention that you're doing it for the sake of Allah, and this is why I keep mentioning the y-axis, our relationship with Allah, and the x-axis, our relationship with the creation of Allah. If we balance between the both of them, that this dunya can be our right to the hereafter, and inshallah will be in heaven. And as we mentioned before, from the subject of Tawheed, monotheism, and its three parts, which is the Tawheed, the monotheism of the Lordship, the worship, and Allah's names and attributes. And we emphasize that the first thing in Islam is La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. That's where it starts. But the least thing, it ends, where it ends is removing something that harms mankind. If you see, for example, a banana peel, if there is a technology that is harmful to man, or it needs to be fixed, and you are able to fix it, you are saving mankind. And these kind of things, removing harm from mankind, is one part of worship, and we need to remember that. One time, Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam was with Mu'adh ibn Jabal. May Allah be pleased with him. And he was reminding Mu'adh ibn Jabal, do you know what the duties and rights people have toward Allah? And the duties of mankind toward Allah is to worship Him, to worship Allah, and attribute no partner to Him. And the right of mankind is that Allah will not torture those who do not attribute any partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the beginning of our faith, or our iman, to not have any kind of partnership with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, that you are the best community, we the Muslims, the best community which has been brought forth for mankind. So it becomes important on you to have the best of characters and to have the best action, so you can, like I always say, you be the best ambassador to all mankind. Or Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reminds us that you, the Muslim nations, we are considered the 70th nation that came to earth. 70th nation. Muslims are the 70th nation. There are 69 nations before us. And you are the most honorable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we are the most honorable. He didn't say the Arabs. He didn't say the Pakistanis, the Europeans, the Bengalis. No, he said the Muslims. Whoever says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, we are the best, better than the 69 nations that came before us. And we need to act like that. obviously the Muslims these days are not acting like that, and that's the demise of the Muslims these days. And the last thing I wanted to remind everyone, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and this is the stage where our life in this world. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah one time said that if you see me on the other side with the enemy, and even if you see the Quran on my head, still come and kill me, because I'm not supposed to be with the enemy. I'm supposed to be with the Muslims. Subhanallah, the Muslims today, though, they align themselves with the enemies of Islam to kill other Muslims. And they did not learn from Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam or from the Quran how to act and be having the best Muslim characters, so we become leaders of the world the way we were before. But أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم, and I remind you of the hadith of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, 2 words very heavy in the scale of good deeds, very light on the tongue. Subhanallah wa bihamdih, Subhanallah al-Azim. Get used to say it at least 100 times a day. Ask Allah for forgiveness. He is the most forgiving, the most merciful. And do the sunnah, inshallah.